Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rochford Files. This is your host, Andrew Rochford, coming to you live from the Mile Highland City. And we are streaming live on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and with post stream view upload afterwards on Odyssey and Rumble. And tonight we have ourselves a guest. He is one half of the political matrix. Let's welcome in Chris Cy Lawson.
What's going on, Andrew?
Hey,
How you
Cy,
doing?
how you doing tonight?
I'm all right. Just here, just getting in the house not too long ago. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the
Oh,
invite.
that's good.
It's cool.
Oh, yes, sure. Yeah, I've been slow to get guests on, but I'm about to ramp that back up again now that I'm starting to get a more consistent routine of at least doing a couple of streams a week.
Okay. Is this the regular time for your show, Tuesdays and Thursdays, or?
Past couple of weeks, I've been doing the Saturday afternoon stream at like 3
Okay,
p.m. Eastern, and either Tuesday or Thursday night.
got it. Okay, that's what's up. I guess I should start by saying, sorry about last night. I know you're in Colorado, and the Warriors eliminated the Nuggets.
Uh, yeah, I was pretty. I mean, I games 1 and 2 were pretty rough, but I feel like they at least played hard and competed. Uh, Games 3 and 5. I mean, I feel like Nikola Jokic pretty much did the best that he could to try to carry them.
Oh, the Joker is he's special, and hey, what's up, Variant? That's my lady there. She
Oh,
came
hi,
to show
Barry.
some support, so I appreciate the support. Um, with that going back to what we were just saying, the Joker, for those who don't know, Jokic, his nickname is the Joker. He plays on the Denver Nuggets. Uh, he played about as good as anybody could play. And I mean, it was a foregone conclusion that they were going to lose to the Warriors anyway. But I mean, he
Yeah.
gave them all they could handle. And next year, that matchup might look a little bit different if Jamal Murray, who is currently injured, if he was available.
Oh, hi, Barry. Yeah, don't forget Michael Porter Jr. as well. Even though, yeah,
And
they're still going to have trouble guarding on the perimeter, but when you they may be able to do it just by having more offensive firepower.
correct. And also, too, in the front court, uh, the Warriors are kind of weak in that particular area. So, Jokic was putting up 30 points without, not to say he wasn't trying hard, but the resistance was little in terms of who the Warriors could put against him.
So, do you think that his defense will hold a team back from ever winning a title?
You can cover that up if you get other defenders who can, who can close that gap for him. So if you just were depending on if you were depending on his defense to win a championship, then yeah, you're going to be hurt. But if you can, through either the draft or free agency, if you could pick up a good front court, at least defender, somebody like a Bam out of Bio or something like that, or even like a Bobby Portis in Milwaukee, something along those lines, it'd be good. Ah, there go my co-host,
Hey,
Marcus.
Marcus.
What's going on? With that being said, so no, I don't think that his defense is that much of a liability once they bring in other people.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well because I back in the Carmelo Anthony era, you had that traditional uh, rim protecting big and Marcus can be, and they still had more
Mm-hmm.
defensive problems at times than the Jokic era Nuggets have.
Correct. I agree.
So Marcus, Chris, how did you
Hmm.
get into this to the point where you are uh, being part of the political matrix with Marcus?
Oh, hey, Kelly, what's up? So, like everybody else, I was on Twitter and, just browsing Twitter. And this is the time, this is, what is it, 2020, right? Or 2019, whatever year it was. So, I'm paying attention to all the Trump madness and, everything leading up to the election, so on and so forth. And I saw this guy Marcus Cage, and he would pop up in my Twitter feed. He has a lot of followers, and a lot of his stuff would be retweeted, and so it would come up in my feed a lot. We had a lot of mutual followers, and it was kind of like in that Bernie Sanders space. So Marcus, he, I saw he started a show, so I watched the program, and he was discussing something with the two hosts on the show at the time, or the two guests at the time, and he said something, and I saw it flew completely over their head, but to me it was like I caught it. So, as they like to say, I jumped in his DMs, not on no funny shit, but just to tell him like, hey, I was watching your show, I caught what you were trying to say, and I just want to talk to you about it further. So me and him started a dialogue, and it was funny. We end up exchanging numbers. I was actually talking to him while listening to his show. I'm like, this kind of crazy. Probably we talked for a long time. We talked for a couple times. We talked a couple times rather, and he invited me onto the show. He said he wanted to start the show, The Political Matrix. He didn't want to copy what he was seeing online in terms of like independent media and the types of programs they were putting out. So I told him I'm crazy. I don't mind saying crazy shit. So um, I'll do it. I mean, I think it's been 2 years now, or so COVID really messed everything up in terms of time. So I can't remember everything. Um, but yeah, it's like 2 years. Marcus and I have been at this now. We're on the slow but steady grind. Um, but Marcus is a real good guy. He's all over the place. Um, he reaches out to a lot of people. Um, he's open to interviewing a lot of people. He shouts out everybody. He gives everyone a platform. He lets people speak. So I feel real comfortable there. So basically, that's how I got into it. Um, how about you?
Oh, so I'm getting close to about a year since I've started the Rochford Files. I feel like one of the main reasons after taking a year to try to learn what this learn on a lot of the issues and get
Hmm.
a feel for a lot of the indie left media space, but I felt like not enough. There wasn't like enough coverage on like stories that intersected with sports, and I used to be someone who wanted to work in sports broadcasting.
You and me both.
But yeah, the good
When
news is tonight we got three stories that intersect with sports. So with an update on the Brittney Griner case, her being detained in Russia, and uh, Trevor Bauer now suing his accuser, and Sage Steele suing ESPN. But let's get in. Start off with Azealia Banks and her take on the Ukraine and Russia situation. So, gonna get
she
that up.
always has something out. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna say, Azealia Banks always has something outlandish to say, but I'd be interested to see what she had to say about this.
and this was a couple of days ago. Everyone thinks
Ah,
they're so edgy and woke for sending support to Ukraine, a country with a leader who denied African exchange students the right to flee the country while it was under attack, then had the nerve to try to bribe and recruit impoverished soldiers via the Ukraine embassies in African nations, has the nerve to make an appearance at an American awards show while his citizens die on the side of a road and is preventing Ukrainian men from leaving, distancing them from their wives, children, and family to fight in a war they have no interest in. Stupid Zelensky has the actual nerve to basically extort Western countries for weapons he can't afford to pay for and calls Western leaders cowards for not wanting to provoke a global nuclear war. This is all about Zelensky's ego, and Ukrainians are going to pay the price for it. While he eats a hot meal with dessert every night and doesn't fire a single weapon, Ukraine and Russia have been warring in the Donbass region for 8 years. This war is not some sudden evil act of Putin like the media wants you to believe. I'm tired of hearing about this bullshit. Free all the men from Ukraine so they can go be with their wives and children. Send Zelensky a soup pot and a pack of water balloons and let him fight this war with his own two hands. You're not a democracy if you have to force regular, everyday citizens to risk their lives. You're not fit to lead without a professionally organized army. Guerrilla style bullshit. Be smart. Wave the fucking white flag so these Ukrainians can go home to a country that isn't completely obliterated. So, how do you feel about this take now that you've seen this?
I mean, Azealia Banks does a lot of wild and crazy shit, or says a lot of wild and crazy shit. You know, she gets involved. She gets involved with hey, what's up, Blue Moon Red Wine? How you doing?
Hi,
Thanks for
Blue
coming
Moon
through.
Red Wine.
Um, Back to Azealia. Um, she says a lot of wild shit. This was actually something that she said I can 100, matter of fact, 10,000% agree with. Um, the part that really that needs to be hammered home to people is that they've been beefing in Ukraine for 8 years, just about, right? Since 2014, more or less. This was not just Putin waking up on a Tuesday saying, like, hey, let's just go bomb Ukraine right now because I have nothing else to do. There's a lot of outside interference. And when I say outside interference, of course, I'm referring to the United States and the West. Um, obviously, NATO has a lot to do with this because they've been trying to get NATO, excuse me, they've been trying to get Ukraine into NATO for some time now. Clearly, that's a provocation towards Russia. That's not something that they want, that they're willing to accept. Once Ukraine would join NATO, it's almost a foregone conclusion that there would be issues with Russia, and we could possibly see a world war as a result of that. Um, and with that being said, some of this does feel a little bit like theater, especially with the whole branding of Zelensky as a man of the people and the people's champ and all, whatever you want to call him. A lot of that looks like it's staged, like it's some kind of Hollywood production, as far as he goes.
Yeah, I've just gotten to look back at some of the Azalea Banks' other political takes, and she's pretty all over the place on many of the other issues. But in this case, she's pretty much nailed just about everything that has really gone down with this, other than she didn't really go in on the Nazi stuff a lot, like a lot of us had been nailing the point home on. But
Yeah, the Nazi thing is it's definitely worth a mention, right? I don't want to just dismiss it and just say no, it's not true. But to go off what you just said, I'm glad that she didn't make that a focal point of her post to say like, oh, you guys are just supporting Nazis, etc., etc. It kind of you sensationalize it to the point to where it'll turn some people off. So I'm really glad that she didn't do that. I don't even think in anything you read that she even mentioned the Nazis once.
No.
So that's pretty good. Because you need a nuanced take like that. Just had to
Yes.
type in the
Yeah,
Rochford Files.
that's the thing with the YouTube algorithm. It makes it hard to find the actual show name, but it does show.
Look, in terms of YouTube and algorithm, I mean, I don't even get notifications for my own show, right? Because I'm subscribed to the channel. I set the notification to be notified, and I'm here with my phone now. It very rarely does it ever come up on my phone. My son did tell me that. My youngest son, he subscribed and he said, "Oh yeah, Dad, on Saturday I got the notification." So I was kind of glad that that at least he got it. But I know probably because of the topics and some of the things we've said or in the past, and some of the topics we discuss, I'm not surprised that they wouldn't want to promote our channel like
that. Before we take our next turn, how did you and Marcus both end up doing the political matrix on Saturday night? Because there's times where that feels like that's the only thing that's live most of the time.
Well, Marcus is based in California. I'm in Florida. We both work, and we both work a lot. Saturday is pretty much the only day where we both are, available, and we have time to, we have time to spend 3 hours most of the time. Sometimes we'll talk. We'll say like 2 hours. Then we'll look at the counter. It's like 3 hours, 18 minutes. I mean, we both could talk, it's cool though. But that's pretty much how it did. It's just a matter of convenience and timing, based on both of our locations and our schedules. But Saturday night gives us a chance to really talk as much shit as we want. Like your kids should either be sleeping or not paying attention to you, so you can sit back and we hope the audience is having a few drinks, maybe smoking something. Maybe they're about that nug life like you, Andrew.
Yeah.
I would hope. But yeah, that's how we settled on Saturday. And Marcus has a couple other channels too, like Hebrew Apologetics he does, and he has the What We've Been Thinking channel. So he does a lot of different. He does programs during the week as well. So for the crazy shit with me, Saturday is probably the best time to do it.
Yeah, let's now get into the transition here, and that's now Biden earlier today seeks $33 billion war chest to support Ukraine's. Zelensky wants quick approval.
Look, I went on a rant at work today because I was working on the computer doing what it is I do, and you look at your phone. I saw a notification, and it said Biden. Basically that headline. Exactly, Kelly. I saw that headline, and I just started going off because where I live and even where I work, there's quite a few homeless people around, and I think I read Zelensky had initially requested maybe $7 billion a month for the next 5 months, and the Biden administration settled on $8 billion a month for 5 months. Yeah, it kind of pissed me off. They told everybody, even just think about it like this, right? When we were going through the pandemic and everything was shut down, and you couldn't work. Maybe your business had to shut down. Maybe you had to work from home. Maybe you had to stop working because you had too many kids, whatever the case may be. Some people actually really struggled during that time. And you'll remember during the election, especially the Georgia election, they were telling the citizens of Georgia, come out and support Warnock and what's his name? Ossoff,
Yes.
whatever his name is. We'll give you $2,000. Not that $2,000 is going to change anyone's life to that extent, However, but if you're short on bread, that $2,000 would help. They
Bait and
get into
switch.
office and then yeah, they get into office and what happened? They say, well, you got 600 already. Take this 1,400 and shut the fuck up. Now, fast forward to Ukraine, Russia. You're giving these people $8 billion a month over the next 5 months. I mean, just pick a city. Just close your eyes, point at any city in the United States, with the exception of, maybe some of the richer cities. But other than that, most places in the United States could use $8 billion a month. It's it was just infuriating to see that, because why are we doing this? Clearly, it seems like a giveaway to like weapons manufacturers, to mercenaries, and to the political connects of Ukraine and everyone in Zelensky's orbit, whoever's supporting him. And you got to pay the people who change all his green screens. They do a really good job too.
Yeah, I think over the past couple of days, you know how I've been noticing a lot of people complaining about student debt and how they were the ones who paid theirs off. Therefore, no one else should be able to have their debt forgiven. And where's the outrage? They don't, those are the type of people that you don't hear get outraged whenever the military wants more money, because we should we don't get a say over the military industrial complex getting more and more money every time they ask for it. But you've always got propagandists and bootstrap mentality quick to come out against the people getting any type of student debt forgiveness. But also, they also try to make it about other debt as well. But that's actually better because we would want more types of debt forgiven, not just student debt. Medical debt's huge. Housing debt.
Exactly, Kelly. Kelly is real quick side note before we get back into it. Kelly and the other commenter were carrying signs. They were one of Marcus and I's earliest supporters. I mean, sometimes it would feel like it was just Marcus, myself, signs, and Kelly in the chat. So, they ride with us. So I tell them all the time. I'm very appreciative of their support. And they're good people. But I mean, her comment basically shows that she's a good person, right? She paid off her debts. She has no problem with someone else's debt being forgiven, paid off, whatever. Um, the people who say what you had said earlier about, well, I paid off my debt. It's not fair that they should get theirs forgiven. I mean, I just really want to tell people like that, just shut the fuck up. I mean, just really shut up. If you paid and you paid yours off, then maybe you're in a better situation. Maybe you earn more money. Maybe you made a slightly better decision in terms of what you did for school and your professional career. Um, but if we're really looking at it, the cost of education has increased to the point to where it makes absolutely no sense. You know,
Yeah.
uh, and it's wildly expensive. It's probably impacting people's ability to obtain housing, uh, whether you want to rent or whether you want to buy a house. If you've got, $700-800 a month student loan bill, and you're only making 22, 2300, excuse me, like 22, let's just say, I'm being generous. Let's say you're only making $20, $21 an hour. It's not enough for you to live on at all. So if they were to forgive people's loans, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the dumbest arguments that you have come out. And the reason why it's important to tie into this is because they're never here saying anything about other types of spending like military and police, which is why it's so easy to reject those type of arguments 10 rows into the stands.
I like that. That was good. Uh, Usually, too, the the uh, the military will say, like, even with Trump, you'll see this. The military says, "Look, we need more money. We need more money. Can you please give us money? And how about 30 billion? That sounds good. Give us an additional 30." Regardless of whether it's Republican or Democrat administration or Congress, they always give them more than what they asked for. I mean, how many times do we have to see this? And to your point, the same people crying about people's student loans being possibly being forgiven are they all of a sudden lose their voice when it comes to additional funds to actually kill people, because this money's not going to like build schools in Afghanistan. It's not going to build schools in Iraq. It's not going to deliver humanitarian aid in Pakistan or Syria. It's literally going to kill people in one way or another.
Yeah, that sums it up as well, very well, right there. Now let's shift into our next story. And uh, Biden uh, on Tuesday finally used his pardoning and clemency powers.
Yeah, what did he do? He pardoned what, 70, was it 72 or 76 people or something to that effect? 75. Damn it.
Yeah, so I'm about to read the important parts of this article here.
Yeah. Go
But
ahead, dude.
Biden pardons three people, reduces sentences for 75 non-violent drug offenders. President Joe Biden announced on Tuesday that he pardoned three people who have demonstrated a commitment to rehabilitation, including 86-year-old Abraham W. Bolden Sr., who was the first Black Secret Service agent to serve on a presidential detail. The president also commuted the sentences of 75 people who are currently serving long sentences for nonviolent drug offenses. Um, Tuesday's action was the first time Biden used his clemency powers during his presidency and came after advocates and progressive Democrats urged the president to fulfill his long awaited campaign promise to use his executive authority to address mass incarceration and racial disparities in the criminal justice system, a crisis that was accelerated through policies like the 1994 crime bill, sweeping legislation authored by then Senator Biden that experts say now disproportionately impacted people of color. Now that we've got to that point, we noticed that last week was 420, and the whole free nonviolent drug offenders was one of many abandoned campaign promises of the Joe Biden, and now kind of like that small amount of debt cancellation he announced, I think sometime last year. This is another one of those instances where you're helping an extremely small amount of people.
Uh, I'm glad the article referenced the fact that, Biden did author the 94 crime bill, right? Uh, he's been in office, what, since January of last year?
Yes.
I mean, considering how much the Democratic Party has pandered to black people over years, especially in the wake of the Trump administration, and how the Democrats and their media allies, went bent over backwards to make it seem as if, Trump and the Republicans just hated all black people. You would think a guy who authored such legislation, maybe on day one, would have done something like this, but he waited, what, a year, 3 months, and 75 people, 78 people, whatever the total is. I mean, it's a slap in the face. And I mean, the first Who's the first reference? If you scroll back up, the first reference was what, a black Secret Service agent?
Yes.
So again, you're pandering to black people. You do nothing for them. You let one black guy out, and now we're all supposed to get in line, vote for you, and send money to support your reelection or whatever the Democrats are doing. Um, Again, just another slap in the face. If they were really progressive, and they really like, even just think about it from a purely political standpoint, right? Okay, how do I get more people to vote for me? How can I make myself more popular? How can I get more people to remember to come out and vote in midterms and the presidential election years? How do I do this? Well, in terms of black folks, there's a lot of black people and black families that have been affected by the war on drugs and by the crime bill. You should have basically on day one said, you know what, anybody who's locked up for marijuana, non-violent charges, and you're still in jail, I don't care if you were trying to move 20 pounds, 100 pounds, 500 pounds, as long as it was just weed, you guys need to be released from jail. Your record's cleared. You have no debt with the courts. Your rights are immediately reinstated. If you notice, you can read all the words in all these articles, listen to all their speeches. They're nowhere near interested in doing any of that.
Yes, you just pointed out how contradicting that the actions of the Biden administration have really been since whenever they feel like they can conveniently abandon campaign promises or with the public option, they even abandoned talking about that a few weeks before the election back in 2020. And then you had uh, his VP pick, Kamala Harris, very contradictory towards the idea of freeing uh, the drug offenders. And early on, after they started to take office, they had to let go of staff that had done weed.
Yeah, Kamala pisses me off. I never really liked her. I mean, it was bad enough that Hillary Clinton showed up to the Breakfast Club and pulled the hot sauce out her purse, right? And Kamala's like, "Oh no, I could do you better. I could show you how I was smoking weed, listening to listening to Pac, and who she say, Dr. Dre and Snoop. Some I can't remember who exactly she said, but she said she was listening to them in college years before they ever put a project out, a single, a verse, or anything. So she has no connection to the black community, and of course she tries to pretend that she does just because her skin is the color it is, but she's as plugged into the black community as Obama is.
Yeah, and don't forget sneakers. She thinks red chucks and the wheat
Yeah,
Tims
right.
are enough to connect.
Correct. So she smoked weed in college. She wears Chuck Taylors and she likes Tims, and we're supposed to just ignore her entire record. It's so stupid. But unfortunately, and I'll say it, I always keep it real. You know, Black folks continue to fall for this. Well, at least too many of them anyway. They're so stuck on, this idea that Republicans are racist and Democrats are not.
Yeah, that. But now we've got a story that ties into that clemency because Brittney Griner is still stranded in Russia, as she has been for a while after authorities arrested her, detained her over the vaping parts that she had when she tried to return to the United States once the Ukraine and Russia conflict just came up. And when you talk about someone who wanted to try to do the convenient high profile flex thing, that was Donald Trump. He got Leangelo Ball out from China in like a few days. How long do you think it would have taken Donald Trump to get Brittney Griner out?
Trump, for good or bad, um, he knew when to play the cards to get him the most political capital, right? And to kind of rub shit in people's face. Trump would have Brittney would already be home, and he would have already had a photo op with her, just so he could say, "Look, I got someone who is gay, black, and an athlete out of Russia. I can't be racist, right? Everybody loves me." he, he would have taken full advantage of it, and like I said, he would have made this a bigger issue, and he would have gotten her home a long time ago. The Biden administration, uh, again, I think they're letting this sit on purpose. They just want to have something to, they like the fact that they have a high profile, even though she's not really that high profile, really. Um, they like having that high profile, um, uh, not POW, but entertainer, so to speak, athlete rather. They like having her there because then you can just use it to beat Russia over the head. Oh my God, look what they're doing to our girl. Russia bad, Russia bad, Russia bad. Oh yeah, like off camera, I'm always imitating Trump. She's always laughing at me. My favorite one though is like, I love WikiLeaks. I love WikiLeaks, don't you? Don't you love WikiLeaks? And then he shitted all over them.
So yeah, this highlighted part here was pretty much the update. When it comes to Brittney Griner, we're working very closely with our team. Her case is a top priority for us. Price added, and Price is the part of the State Department who put that update, which I just saw the Hill post about yesterday, and it is pretty wild how they're just willing to let her sit there in Russia this whole time. And this could drag on as long as May 19th.
So that's what, like three, well,
3 more
just
weeks or
just
so.
about 3 weeks, right? Yeah. Um, has anyone seen her though?
I
Like,
don't think,
has any media?
no, I think from what I've seen on this story, it's mainly just relying on like what sources are saying rather than what anyone really has seen.
And this is, and as far as Russia goes, this is a game for them too. Because here's the thing: she just wasn't in Russia to be sightseeing, right? I believe, she plays for one of the professional teams there. So, a lot of the women in the WNBA, a lot of the women in the WNBA in the off season, they go to places in Asia and Russia Asia and Europe to Asia and Russia to go play ball and to get a check.
Yeah, since pretty much all of them have to play multiple seasons in order to make enough of a living compared to uh, athletes and many of the other sports who really only have to play one season to make enough of the comfortable salary for themselves at that level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because clearly the ladies in the WNBA are not going to be paid anywhere near as much as their male counterparts in the NBA. So they have to do what they have to do. I mean, does it suck that they have to play multiple times, but you're actual multiple seasons? Yeah, kind of. But you are doing the thing you love, and you are getting to travel as well. I mean, it's kind of better than sitting at a desk and 9 to 5 all day. Like, I mean, I would love to. I'd love to be able to travel and play ball, even if I didn't make enough money in the NBA. And it's like, fine. I mean, look at Stephon Marbury. He went to China after rubbing all that Vaseline on his face in that weird ass video. He was able to go from there to becoming a god in China.
Every now and then you see someone pass up a solid pay date and not and get on hard times with money, like uh, Latrell Sprewell.
Oh yeah, that was my guy, Spree. It happens to a lot of them. I mean, just think about it. These are guys who are coming from modest backgrounds. If they're not lower middle class, they're in low class in terms of their economics. Uh, you go from struggling to eat lunch some days or maybe dinner and paying the bills, their family struggling to pay the bills, to all of a sudden I've got $18 million in the bank. So at that point, you then go and buy everything that you've ever wanted. You're buying assets that are depreciating. So you're not making investments. You're buying watches. You're putting rims on cars. You're buying mom a house. You're telling mom to retire. Maybe you buy your dad a place. Maybe you tell him to retire. So you go from taking care of yourself to now you're taking care of multiple people, and the money's only being spent. You're not, again, you're not investing it. Whatever happened to Latrell? Then he spent a lot of money. I think he had like a bunch of child support too. So, he shows up to the Knicks games every once in a while.
Yeah, so what happened was after that 03-04 season where the Timberwolves made that Western Conference Finals run,
I know.
he passed up a $3 million, 3-year, $21 million deal, and said that wasn't enough to feed his family. And he never got any NBA contract offered to him again after that.
Correct. He turned down $8 million a year, and look. I like Latrell. That was my guy. I liked him from Golden State days, right? That was stupid for him to say that $8 million a year was not enough to feed his family. I mean, if that's not enough to feed your family, then maybe you need to put them on a diet.
So yeah, that's
Mm,
one of the things I like to cover is like these sports stories, but like from a pro worker perspective, not like this uh, millionaires versus billionaires type of angle that a lot of people like to go at.
Oh, I know. If Kelly put up a comment and said, "Just wait until the transgendered women decide they want to join the WNBA," oh, that'll be controversial to say the least.
So before we get into this next development with this whole Trevor Bauer sexual assault case, what was your experience like interviewing Tara Reid last month?
Oh, that was pretty cool. I didn't expect to do it again. That's one of those things that Marcus is really good at. He's really good at reaching out to people and setting up these interviews. It was good talking to her. She had obviously from the time that she came out and stated, that she was, harassed and abused by Joe Biden. Um, it's been the focal point of a lot of her earlier appearances. So at least as far as I go, I didn't want to delve into it because it was one of those things like if you really want to know, you can read her, you can read articles, you can go to her earlier tweets, you can go to other interviews. So it was good to talk to her about something other than what Biden did to her.
Yeah, I would agree. I think one of the things the left does a lot is we tend to give a lot of repetitive interviews whenever a certain person is part of the hot story of the moment, and we're not like trying to do things like being a bit more original in the questions that we ask and stuff like that.
Correct. And if you don't like Biden, clearly she's a great guest to bring on if you wanted to use her to attack Biden. To me, that's kind of like since we're since we're interweaving sports, it's kind of bush league shit. Hey, come on the show so we can talk about something really embarrassing, and just so we can try to shit on the president. I wasn't with that. And Marcus wasn't either.
Yes. So let's dive into this latest development in this Trevor Bauer case. Trevor Bauer sues sexual assault accuser, claims women wanted to destroy his career. Trevor Bauer is
Oof.
now suing the San Diego woman who accused him of sexual assault, with the MLB star claiming she made up allegations against him in order to ruin his baseball career and extract money from him. The lawsuit, obtained by TMZ Sports, was filed in California on Monday. The docs show Bauer suing both Lindsay Hill and one of her attorneys, Fred Tiagaraha, over what he claims are fabricated sexual assault allegations. Bauer, as what he's done repeatedly since Hill accused him in 2021, completely denied having consensual sex with the woman. Bauer also once again denied ever choking Hill without her consent. He also denied ever punching or scratching her. Bauer did acknowledge that the two had sex on two occasions, once in April 2021 and May of 2021. But he claimed over and over again in the suit that the actions during those encounters were consensual. In his suit, Bauer claims, despite consenting to rough sex, Hill falsely filed a police report against him and accused him of sexual assault in order to sink his baseball career and to try to reach a financial settlement with him. Bauer claims in the suit that Tiagaraha helped her perpetuate the false allegations.
Look,
So, Chris, what do you think now with this latest development in this case now?
so I mean, damn, there's so many jokes flying around. I'm trying not to, like, my brain is in competition right now. I want to make jokes, but it's a serious topic, right? So I'll tell the jokes to fall back. This is another episode. To me, it seems like where it's a money grab. You have a money hungry attorney telling their client, "Hey, I can get you money. If you can show me if you can show me where the female in question is paying her retainer and paying a monthly bill to that attorney for his services, then I would say I would be a little I'd believe it a little bit more. If you know anything about attorneys, they don't like to do shit for free. Pro bono stuff, they'll do pro bono stuff because it has a benefit to them, but they're not willing to sacrifice a minute of their time. They'll charge you their highest rate for like an 8-minute phone conversation or email. So I would like to know if she's paying her attorney monthly. One, two, these guys like these guys got to be careful. They should already know that they are targets and that this will happen to them. I mean, this is kind of messed up to say, but it's almost like you need a hidden camera. You need a hidden camera in the hotel room or the house or wherever you're going, not necessarily to show all your friends. It's kind of like protection almost, like you know, because he says they consented to it, and you know, now we're in a situation where she's filing, where she's trying to get him for all his money. Um, you gotta be careful, man. You can't be slapping up these girls like that. I mean, they may say it, but man, you can't be slapping them up like this in the bedroom like that. Not to the point to where, look, I'm all for it. Whatever you want to do in there is your business. Look, I'm okay with it, but at the same time, like, there's not a you have no connection with these women to do that. You haven't built up enough trust these athletes haven't built up enough trust with these women to be able to do something like that and then not come back to bite them. Because how many times have we seen this? We've seen the same story how many times? You can change the name of the city, the name of the player, the name of the woman, the name of the attorney, but they all follow this same pattern. At this point, it's on the men to be smarter.
Yes. So the first point I want to make here is I think it's a great principle that you have with professional wrestling. Whenever you have guys or women that work together in the ring, their primary objective is to uh, try to put on the best matches possible and make sure they both come out of it okay and not seriously injured. And I think that Trevor Bauer is trying to ride that defense way too hard over the consensual sex because even if a woman wants rough sex, you have a personal responsibility to make sure that the woman does not look like she does in the photo that you see in this article, which
Correct.
I don't want to put up again. But the point is, that's an important thing from a personal responsibility standpoint. Also, to cover your ass. Then the next part is I think if this takes off in the way that it could, you're going to have a lot more of these anti Me Too type arguments where the when the exception becomes true, it's they try to
Mhm.
blow up this potential example to be more normalized, even though we know that it's often a lower percentage of women who would end up trying to use tactics like suing for money and trying to ruin a man's life.
Hmm. Like you said, if there is a request made from the female side to become a little more physical than you usually would, all right, you can oblige. But again, as you said, there's no need to like scar her up like that to the point to where it's visible in public. I mean, look, when I was younger, hickeys were horrible, right? Like, you know how many times I got in trouble for having a hickey on my neck? Jesus Christ. Too many times to remember. Um, that's just a small thing on your neck, much less, leaving a woman with missing eyelashes and, black eyes or bruises all over. And that's not really the look. It's not a good look, you know. You're supposed to be doing something fun and you leave them bruised and battered. That's not really it's not really a good look for you, especially with somebody that you don't really know all that well.
No, definitely not. So, do you think Trevor Bauer ever gets to step on a pitching mound ever again in MLB?
I guess it really depends on what this suit does, right? I mean, there's been a couple guys who I didn't think would play based on some of the things they said. I mean, John Rocker was going wild with his mouth, not necessarily, um, not necessarily, being physical with women, but he definitely had some less than politically correct comments about the citizens of New York back in, 97, 98, 96, whatever years that was. Um, I didn't expect him to play much longer, but he did. Uh, so I think Bauer, he'll have a chance. People aren't as tuned into baseball as much as they used to. You know, maybe if this was like 95, 96. Yeah, maybe if it was like 95, 96, when more people were watching baseball, I would say like, oh yeah, he's done. But if he took the mound, it's not going to be as big as a football. It's not going to. He's not at the stature of a Colin Kaepernick or like a LeBron James or Kobe. I mean, look, you're in Colorado. we're talking sports. I mean, look at what happened with Kobe.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't want Kobe to play, but the NBA was not going to let Kobe play.
I think there is a difference here. I'm
Yeah,
feeling
of
like
course.
Trevor Bauer is going to be made an example of a lot in the way that the NFL did with Ray Rice. So I wouldn't be surprised if he never stepped on a mound again.
Um, you're right, but I mean, I guess we'll see. I mean, I guess it depends on what the case bears out, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What other additional facts come out. If the woman continues to be credible, if her story is credible, then yeah, they'll make an example out of him. The Ray Rice thing, that was real nasty too, because even though what we saw in the elevator was foul, it shouldn't have happened. She went to jail that night too. That's the part they never really brought up.
Are you familiar with this comment that Kelly is referencing to Cy?
Oh no, I don't. Mm-mm.
I mean, we knew that this was the Jailblazers era, but I don't think I've heard about this story.
Yeah, well, it depends on when in the '90s, right? If it was the late '90s, then yeah, it would have been the Jailblazers. The early part of the '90s, not so much.
Yeah, let's get into the final story of the show tonight, and it's Sage Steele suing ESPN over
Oh,
her
I
free
can.
speech rights.
Oh, this the one that had me like most geeked to talk about because I could use it to take shots at Jamel Hill.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have uh, Jamel Hill involved in this segment as well.
Mm-hmm.
SportsCenter anchor Sage Steele is suing her employer ESPN and its parent company, Walt Disney, after she alleged that the company treated her unfairly for comments she made on a podcast interview last September, according to the Wall Street Journal. Steele alleges that the company breached her contract and violated her free speech rights. The ESPN anchor was under fire after appearing on former quarterback Jay Cutler's podcast Uncut with Jay Cutler last year. During the interview, Steele questioned COVID-19 vaccine mandates and made comments about former President Barack Obama identifying as black instead of biracial. She also said female sports journalists are partly to blame for athletes making inappropriate comments about them if they dress a specific way. Following the interview, Steele tested positive for COVID-19, causing her to go on air while recovering. ESPN required the anchor to issue an apology for her comments. Before the controversy, Steele was one of the lead anchors for ESPN's flagship show, SportsCenter. Since the interview, Steele claims she has been sidelined for prime assignments. She does, however, continue to anchor the new SportsCenter broadcasts. The suit also alleges ESPN failed to stop bullying and harassment by Mrs. Steele's colleagues, the Wall Street Journal reports. In 2007, ESPN established a rule requiring employees to refrain from commenting on political matters without a tie to sports. Steele claims her case was selective enforcement of the rule. I'm going to let you have at it, Cy. What do you think?
Um, we'll get right to it. She's not a progressive Democrat. She's not vote blue no matter who. She's more on the conservative side of things. So of course, when she went on Jay Cutler's podcast, she said some things that the people at ESPN didn't agree with. She gave her opinion. She didn't even say anything really controversial. I mean, she went on there after she got her vaccine, and she said she didn't agree with the policy of mandating it for people, and they didn't like that. But she complied and went and got the shit anyway. Like if she was really gonna be problematic, she would have said, "I'm not getting this shit. and F everybody who is. They're stupid, they're idiots, etc., etc. Maybe even if she was thinking that, even if that is her opinion, she didn't say it. And she didn't disparage her network. She didn't disparage her coworkers. She didn't disparage Disney. So again, this is really all about Disney and ESPN making sure that their black uh, commentators stay in a certain lane. So, AKA, it's okay for Jamel Hill to talk all kind of nonsense, online, offline, on the show, off the show. I mean, she's no longer on ESPN, obviously, but when Jamel Hill was talking shit, it was okay. I used to really like Jamel too, man. It's a shame what she became. She turned into like a Democratic operative. But anyway, back to Sage Steele. Uh, I was reading further in some other articles, like Justin Clark didn't want to go on air with her. Another another ESPN colleague of Sage Steele's liked comments on Twitter, which basically called for Sage Steele to be punished for what she said. She said, "Look, Barack, I don't know why he identifies as black, and he was basically raised by white people. I say this all the time. He grew up away from black people. I mean, with the exception of the time he spent in Indonesia, but Barack Obama has no roots with the black community, whether it's the African American community or West Indian community or African community. He's not in touch with them. So I mean, we put him as the first black president because in America, one drop of black blood makes you black. But in all honesty, his whole experience was shaped by white folks. You know, he was in the Midwest and he was in Hawaii. He was in Kansas. Marcus, you know Barack? I mean, that's before your time, so probably not.
Then what I'll get started at is, have you noticed how over the years, uh, once the Trump era started, how ESPN had started to try to bend over backwards a bit for the conservative voices that they've had on their network, like Sage Steele, Jason Whitlock, Clay Travis, while trying to clamp down a bit more on their more outspoken liberal voices like Jamel Hill, and even that time where Woj got fined for uh, the way that he spoke to this Missouri senator, if you remember that.
Oh yeah. I do. ESPN, they're playing a game, right? They'll have on Rush Limbaugh to talk shit about Donovan McNabb, knowing full well that Rush is going to talk shit about Donovan McNabb, right? This is going back to what, 04, 03, around that time. They know Jason Whitlock is Jason Shitlock, and he's gonna have a bunch of shit takes. Clay Travis is going to say Clay Travis things. They want it. It brings viewers. It brings ratings. It stirs conversations. It gets clicks. So I'm not surprised that they would, give those guys the platform to say some of the things they say. And then on the other side, they would then highlight a Jamel Hill, who was her co-host, Michael Smith.
Michael Smith.
Yeah, they would, they would give them a platform so that they can respond to these people in their own way. They really should have just stuck to sports, to be quite honest.
Yeah, overall, I think people like us could do the whole sports and politics mixed together better than these major sports networks could.
Yeah, because whether you're in full agreement with someone like Jason Whitlock and Clay Travis, or you agree totally with a Jamel Hill and Michael Smith or Stephen A. Smith to that point, their points are basically Republican and Democratic Party talking points. They're not willing to look at these topics any deeper than what they are. Even Levitard, same thing with him. He does I don't want to completely shit all over Levitard. He's an entertaining guy. He's got a good thing, you know. He took care of his pops and all that. But he's another one, more or less. Just Democratic talking points. Republicans bad. Support Democrats, even though they're not the greatest.
Yeah, and don't forget Shannon Sharp, who had some great segments when it came to advocacy for Colin Kaepernick, but he's never to be found when you need him to criticize the Democratic Party. And don't forget that mask off moment he had recently by him saying that he'd be willing to pay like $15-20 a gallon of gas to make sure Trump is if that meant Trump wasn't in office again.
Exactly. Correct. And Uncle Shay Shay, as he goes by, he's a funny guy. He's cool. He comes from. I can't question his blackness, right? He's really. He's from South Carolina, right?
Uh, Savannah, Georgia.
Oh, Savannah. Yeah, yeah. So you could just look at him, his brother. You don't have to say much. Like you can imagine what their family had it like a generation before, 2 generations prior, 3 generations, so on and so forth. So they fully know how the system works. They fully understand how it's designed and what it's meant to do and the negative outcomes it's meant to bring people who look like them. Now, with that being said, they get a little bit of money. They get further and further and further removed from their origin. And then they start saying stupid shit like what you just said. Oh, shit, I'll pay $20 a gallon for gas as long as it means Trump is not in office. I mean, it's the dumbest shit you could have said. You could have used your platform to say, like, hey, Biden administration, why don't you provide relief to people? But they will not criticize the Democratic Party for things that they should be doing. They'll get on them. They'll lightly criticize them for not being stronger in their opposition to Republicans, or for them not using particular language as it comes to debating or talking about Republicans. That's about as far as they'll go with their criticism. They call it hot sauce, but that shit is like real mild and watered down.
So let's get into this clip from Levitard and Friends. I remember back when they were on ESPN, that was like appointment viewing at
Blackity black.
8 a.m. during the week. But now it's not quite the same now that they're just a YouTube channel. Well, let's hear what Jamel Hill has to say about this. Sage
She's gonna
Steele.
shit all, and she's gonna shit all over Sage. I already know. But go ahead.
Or if I've been subpoenaed. I have not yet been subpoenaed. I don't know if you were serious about whether or not you were subpoenaed. I can't tell for sure because this story is pretty funny. Jamel, have you been subpoenaed in the Sage Steele lawsuit against ESPN?
I have not been subpoenaed.
Are you expecting to be subpoenaed?
No, because I would definitely be a hostile witness.
You last time, or I don't know when we talked about this, but we were talking about something that happened with Sage, and did you don't often do this. Did you say it was clown behavior?
I did. This was based off the podcast she did with Jay Cutler. It wasn't everything that was said in there. It was just certain comments that she made that I thought, were just kind of silly and ridiculous. I mean, for her to say that Barack Obama, that she's shocked that he identifies so much with being Black, considering that he had a very difficult relationship, or some would say non-relationship, with his father, is just why. And so I just find it amusing that she's using that as some kind of evidence. I'm like, I didn't even work at ESPN then, so I don't even know why that would be relevant, but this is her cross to bear, not mine. It's just funny to be dredged back into. I don't know if you feel this way, Dan, but I feel like this has happened to me so many times since I left there. I do get a little tired of always being dredged back into their business. It's like, I moved on. I'm living my life. I'm enjoying everything that I'm doing. And yet to quote Al Pacino, every time I try to get out, they pull me back in. And so, not they being the company, but people love to reference me and use me as some kind of example, typically for some nonsense. And so I was just like, where was all this when I was actually going through some of the stuff? You guys didn't want to talk about me then, but now all of a sudden you want to reference what I went through and use that as some example to help you prove whatever it is you're trying to prove about ESPN's culture.
Oh, but I won't let you diminish the nature of your pioneering, because you.
Cy, you got anything to react on to what she just said?
I mean, she didn't actually say anything, too bad. She didn't like Sage Steele for a while. I mean, I used to be like probably most of us, like ESPN'd out. Like from the time I opened my eyes, I grabbed the remote control, turned the TV on, ESPN while getting ready for school. Come home from school, ESPN. Come in from outside, ESPN. I mean, there's probably times where I probably didn't even watch anything other than ESPN. Outside of movies and things like that, maybe a couple music videos and whatnot. But ESPN was like major for us. So when I saw Jemele Hill at first, I was like, okay, like she knows her shit. But again, she just comes across as a typical Democratic operative who's doing a bad job. Yeah. Yeah, but she just comes, as I just said, she comes across as a Democratic operative who has nothing to offer than just some of the same bullshit we've been hearing from the likes of like Al Sharpton and them for years.
When in the middle of the culture wars, you were actually in the heat of this. And the reason, one of the many reasons I admire you is because you were on the front lines of this with the president of the United States and your mom calling the White House and everything that was happening there. And, that's not what Sage has endured at that company. It is simply not. That's not, you guys are, for her to think that she has been oppressed in some way when she is still working there and suing the company, and they've got an optics problem where they can't throw her out the door, because then it would look like they're throwing her out the door for her politics right into her next job, which is the career move of taking the politics that you left ESPN with and seeing where you can end up in the right, on the right side of this culture war. No, you can't diminish that, Jemele. You were at the front lines of the fight, and it cost you your job there.
I mean, yeah, I'm certainly not trying to diminish it, but it again, it's just interesting because I had to look this up yesterday because I remember when it was the thick of that time. I remember what she said because she, this was her direct quote, Dan. Her direct quote was, "We're all afraid to comment on things in general these days because you don't want anyone to take it the wrong way. I just think we're in very tough times, and I will say this, and it's not a lack of supporting Jemele. It's simply, I just try to abide by the rules." She says now she tries to follow a professional PR person's advice. Just don't press in. And it's proven to be a pretty wise decision in most cases recently. I mean, listen, it's hilarious because, I definitely heard some comments that she said about me behind closed doors during this time, and they don't line up with what she's saying now. I'll say that.
Yeah, I don't. You tell me what this is supposed to be here, because I don't. Oftentimes, Jemele, I love the range of your personality, but you oftentimes get dragged by me into the middle of these scrums that I don't know that it serves you to talk about this stuff. And what the hostility that it brings you to me is really unpleasant. But you don't mind those fights. So I admire how hardened you've been by the years of having to fight them, because very few have come up through this business the way you did. And the ESPN machine spit you guys out as you were trying to do something different on the 6 p.m. Sports Center. And I'm sorry, Sage Steele doesn't get to be the kind of activist on this one that you are.
Well, and let's be honest, Dan. I mean, you and I were there long enough. I mean, there were plenty. It seems the gist of her entire complaint, and this is a complaint and a conversation that's happening across America, where there's a lot of conservative thinking people and right-wing people who feel like their right to say things is being oppressed and it's being suppressed, and they don't.
I think that's a good point to weigh in on what she just said.
Look, everybody in that clip, all their politics are the same. So, I mean, of course they would dislike anything and everything about Sage Steele, because Sage, clearly her politics are not the same, as they don't share the same political outlook. So it's kind of like high school, right? Like, oh, you're not in the club, you're gonna talk shit about you, that's what comes across to me. Like, this is high school. They're the quote unquote cool kids, and they're making fun of the kid who's not in the in crowd.
Yeah, and I think what people like Jamel Hill, Dan Levitard, they don't realize that they're really just playing the other side of the culture war, as opposed to other people who can see it right through that, like us. And even when they have moments like when Jamel was right on, she has her moments where she was right, like on her criticisms of Trump, but there was a lot of performative aspects to it, like whenever
Thank
she
you.
complained about Joe Manchin, but then at the same time, well, I guess this is just what these people want to keep in place, not realizing the riggedness of this political system that we live.
Correct. Joe Manchin. Just as his name alone. No, I'm not even gonna get caught up on going in on him. But yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said. Like I said, as you said, not everything Jamel said as it related to Trump was wrong. She was right on certain things, but as you said, it was very performative, and she didn't apply that same critique towards Democrats outside of maybe a Joe Manchin, but that's low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Could have went after your guy Obama, but if you go to her Twitter page, her pinned tweet is her and her husband or fiance with the Obamas. So she would never, ever, ever in her lifetime, at least on air, utter anything critical about Obama. So, and there's plenty there to be critical of, or just the Democratic Party in itself, but she wouldn't fix her mouth to say that.
Don't have the same voice that people like you and I have, which I think is really interesting. And a bit of it is a persecution complex, because see, what they want is total agreement, and that's different. Like, if you get pushback and you get people disagreeing with you, or people calling you out, that's not the same as your right to say things as being oppressed. And there are plenty of conservative people at ESPN who have been able to say what they wanted to say, and it's been fine. All right. And so, at that place, everybody's punishment isn't the same, because they don't have a manual for everything. I remember a similar ESPN controversy I got dragged into. And when Lou Holtz referenced Hitler being a good leader on air, nothing happened to Lou Holtz. He was totally fine. Okay. And as far as I know, he's a conservative, Trump supporting, person. And I made another type of reference about Hitler in the column, and I got suspended. All right. And everybody kept running to me saying, what do you think about the fact they didn't suspend Lou Holtz and all of this? But you understand very easily that punishment often at ESPN is determined by public reaction, and not because they have some guideline that says, okay, if you say something bad about the company here, that's specifically 2 days off air, or this and that. Like, it doesn't work that way.
The crux of the lawsuit, or at least what's been making the rounds on Twitter, is that she holds people. I think Dane was named in this specific part. She said that it's a breaking of ESPN policy because people that were at ESPN called her out and criticized her behavior, and that was a larger breach of ESPN policy, not just the talking politics that she did with Jay Cutler. we were making the argument, and yeah, I agree with everything that Dan said. Her plight was so different than your plight over there, and I believed in the activism that you were doing. But Sage Steele is an activist, like it or not. She is actively being an activist for causes we may not agree with, and I don't think that there's a lawsuit here, but I got to imagine it's been pretty shitty being Sage Steele inside that building, given how everybody feels about her politics for the most part. Outside
Yeah,
managers.
But I mean, I would also say too is that it does go in the other direction. You think everybody that I worked with at ESPN believed in what I said about Donald Trump? They didn't. There was a lot of people in that building that didn't like me for what I said. And if she's tried to say or trying to allege that this stops certain assignments, again, I went through the same thing. There are things, the level of permission slips I needed to appear on things when I was there after this happened was real. So her idea that like this only happens to her because of her beliefs, no, it doesn't. ESPN does not want the smoke. Neither does Disney. It doesn't matter if you're right-leaning or left-leaning. They are against the smoke.
We will let you go. Let's countersuit.
That's too bad. I had a bunch of questions.
Okay. Yes. You had a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Jamel, let's
He's out of time,
countersuit.
though.
I have to laugh when they say that Disney doesn't want the smoke. Here in Florida, with that legislation they just passed recently as it relates to the bill. I don't even know the proper name of the bill, but they're calling it "Don't Say Gay," or they called it "Don't Say Gay," whatever. Disney, Bob Chapek tried to stay neutral on it. Disney, sure enough, decided to force Bob Chapek to put a statement out saying that they're going to do their best to try to repeal the legislation. That led to DeSantis, and the Republicans in the Florida legislature here, repealing that special status that Disney had. So Disney wants to smoke. They just want to be in control of the smoke. So I'm not going to say that they don't. They'll deal with controversy as it benefits them.
Yeah, I would say that they want to just keep that strictly behind the scenes rather than having their shit be all up out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
But how would you say people have reacted to that?
To
the Disney stuff that's going on in Florida.
Oh, okay. So, well, first of all, most people, the average people you talk to, the first thing when you mention Disney is the first thing they say, that place is too goddamn expensive. I'm not going here. First thing they say. I mean, I was reading an article yesterday. To get in, the average adult, an adult ticket to Disney, I think, is $109. For kids over 10, it's $104. For kids under 10, it's $104. So if it's just you and your child, you're already at $200 some odd bucks. So that's the first thing. One is the cost of it. Two, most people are supportive. Well, back up. Most people don't pay attention to the details. They see headlines. They see the top fold of a newspaper in an office. They see the headline and a few lines on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, etc. They don't bother to read and properly educate or inform themselves on these matters. So, of course, a lot of people were like, oh my God, this is horrible. But once you actually read to them what was in it, the vast majority of people agreed.
And isn't it also funny how we have places like ESPN and Disney make liberals and conservatives seem like these vastly different types of people, but once you look at where they stand on foreign policy, they're very much more aligned than they think they are.
if we had a media, right, that actually, instead of trying to feed you, instead of trying to give you all the news all at once, if we had a media, I see you, Warren. Whatever,
Uncle
man.
Warren.
If you had a media that took time to dissect these stories, actually go through pieces of legislation that are being considered or legislation that has been passed, if they actually took the time to go through it and discuss it with people, present it in a way that's not sensationalistic, if that's a word, if they got rid of some of the sensationalism behind it, you'd see most people agree on a lot of these issues, whether it's
Thanks,
all
Mike.
right, Marcus, I'll hit you up. You see a lot of people agree on more things than they don't. You know, they always make it seem as if we're so apart. But like I said, when you sit down and you talk to people and you explain it to them, then they say, "Well, damn, well, I didn't hear that on MSNBC. I didn't hear that on CNN." Look, half the time the people I work with, they think I'm a right-wing Republican, and I couldn't be anything further from it. But because I'm not out here Team Obama, Team Biden, Team Democrat, they're not used to seeing that. You know, you have to use nuance when you're talking about these things. You have to use common sense. You know, you don't want, for instance, when you say to people, "So it's okay if I go to your 8-year-old's class and I start talking to them about sexual matters." First thing everybody says, "Hell no, get the fuck out of here. Why would you do that?" Exactly. So when you say to them, "Well, yeah, they just want to make sure that doesn't happen to your second grader or your third grader," what do they say? "Oh, well, yeah, I agree with that." The paywalls prevent many from reading past. Yes, that's a, that what Variant just said here is it's very important. They put up the most eye-catching, head-exploding, uh, eye-catching, head-exploding headlines, and you read it, and then they give you maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 sentences, and then here comes the paywall thing. If you actually get past the paywall and you read the article, a lot of the time they do tell you the truth. But who wants to pay for the Washington Post propaganda? Who wants to pay for the New York Times propaganda? I'm sure you don't. I'm sure many in the audience don't. I damn sure I'm not paying them. And most of us don't get the newspaper thrown at our door in the morning or stuffed in your mailbox or thrown on your driveway anymore. When I was a kid, I didn't even have to look for when I was a kid, I didn't even have to look for a newspaper. I just went outside the building. Somebody left one on the steps. There was one on the heater. There was one on the mailbox. So you took it and you ran with it. Or it was 50 cents down at the store. So when you go get your bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich in the morning, you grab a newspaper with it because I just wanted to see what the Yankees did the night before. Then I start reading the newspaper from the back to the front. You get past the sports section and you start reading a little bit into business, news, and entertainment, etc., etc. Then you just start picking things up. But you're not allowed to do that anymore. Not allowed, but you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, don't. Also, when you get to the point where we are at, we don't really need to bother with paywalls because we could debunk a lot of what they're saying just by what they leave out for free.
Exactly. Excellent point.
Hey, Uncle Warren, have to work on getting you on the Rochford Files soon.
If you get Uncle Warren on, you got to do it late night, and you got to make sure you're on somewhere else because he's gonna say some wild shit. But he's a good guy. Shout out to Uncle Warren.
Yeah, y'all really brought some new peeps out to the chat tonight.
Yeah, I mean we have a very dedicated group. We try to support each other. So we all like talking trash, and Kelly really drives the conversation. in the chats. She's like the she's like she's the captain of the chat, the general of the chat. Because Kelly can say things in support of what we're saying, or she'll throw a wrench, and the whole entire chat will turn into like Girls Gone Wild. Yeah, see, like she'll make a comment like that, which is on point. You see, what did she just say? She's been on her best behavior tonight.
So, Cy, do you have anything that you'd like to plug before we close things out tonight?
Let's see. Well, the political matrix will be on what's today? Thursday, right? Yeah,
Yep.
today's Thursday. We'll be on Saturday night, usual between 9:30, 10 o'clock Eastern time. I don't know. Marcus and I haven't figured out everything we're going to discuss, but we're there every Saturday. I don't do too much else. I mean, I talk shit on Twitter, but I'm busy, like offline. Like I like doing a lot of things. I like going to the beach and all that shit. So I can't say that I do a whole bunch of other stuff. But what I do want to promote is take care of yourselves. Try to eat right. Try to do a little bit of exercise, which I need to take my own advice at the moment. I'm like 220 pounds. Mom, if you're listening, don't say nothing to me. Just take care of homeless people if you can. If you see somebody, they could use a sandwich. And if they're not going to eat food and, they want to get high, just give them a few bucks, man. It's fine. That may be the last time they get high. Like I said, be good to each other and just, think the things you see, don't be so quick to get emotionally worked up over some of this shit we see. Before you jump out the ledge with your hardcore opinion, just wait until you have a little more information.
Well said, Cy. Well said. As for here, be on the lookout if you want to watch the stream. I'm uploading to Odyssey and Rumble, so please like, share, subscribe to the stream, not only here but on multiple platforms. That doesn't matter whether it's just a small ass channel like mine or your favorite major YouTube channels that you like as well, because we may not be here forever. But with that being said, be on the lookout for the next stream on Saturday. And this is Andrew Rochford, host of the Rochford Files, saying goodbye and good night.